But first, these Anti-Australia Day activists are truly getting desperate. I mean, to go after the Australian Open, for heaven's sake. Sunday night, of course, will be the men's final. So apparently the trots down in Melbourne, there's plenty of them down there, they're going to rock up and interrupt one of the biggest tennis events in the world. And this goes to the point of what they're really protesting. They're not protesting about January 26. They're not protesting about Australia Day being on January 26. They're protesting about Australia, the whole concept of the place, the fact that it even exists. And you could change Australia Day to any day on the calendar and it wouldn't make a lick of difference because it would still be the same country that they hate, with the same colonial roots that they hate. It was just about the date, the 26th. You wouldn't go after one of our biggest global events because, of course, this could get global attention if they somehow manage to disrupt the men's final. But that's what they want. They want Australia to look like a laughing stock on the world stage. They want to embarrass Australia because they don't believe in Australia. Even Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen says protesting the Australian Open is disgusting.
I think it would be disgusting to target the Australian Open, and that would really break, I think, the patience of the public. Conflict around the world should never bring and should never be used as an opportunity to bring division and hate to our streets. But we have seen a small number of people choose to use that overseas conflict for their own purposes to drive hate and division here in our streets. Victoria Police are operationally ready. They will be there in large numbers and they have the powers they need should any activity turn violent.
And she's right, it would test the public's patience. And these protesters, these activists, need to know that we are not going to be patient with them anymore. We are sick of being told that we live in a terrible country when we know that we don't, and that we should feel guilty all the time when we know that we shouldn't. We know that we live in one of the best countries on earth. We're sick of being lectured about conflicts on the other side of the world and being told by people whose religion and culture are anathema to ours that we need to kowtow to them and change our values so they feel more comfortable. I mean, what do you think would happen if I walked through the middle of Gaza this weekend, proclaiming that it was the ancestral land of the Jews? I certainly wouldn't be back here on Monday to be able to talk about it. And this is apparently what might happen in Melbourne on Sunday. You have these Anti-Australia Day people and these pro-Palestinian people, both organising rallies on Australia Day that might converge and make one massive protest in the CBD that'll then move towards Melbourne Park to disrupt the tennis. And it's no coincidence that the pro-Palestinian mob would choose to protest on Australia Day because, again, they might be outwardly protesting about something on the other side of the world, but they're also protesting against Australia. They and the Anti-Australia Day lot are one and the same. They share the same common belief, a disdain for the West. They could protest any other day of the year, but just like they chose to protest on October the 7th, they couldn't even let Jews and Israelis mark in peace the day that their people were massacred. They choose to protest on Australia Day to drive home the point that they don't like us. They know exactly what they're doing. They know that Australia Day is quote-unquote a divisive day, or at least some have done their best to make it a divisive day. And they want to wedge open that division a little bit more because it helps confuse and weaken a Western country. It makes a mockery of our culture, and that is exactly what they want. And if they can join with the Australia Day protesters to make a mega protest that interrupts the tennis and gets their message on TV screens across the world about what a divided country Australia is, then even better for them. By the way, what are they even protesting about anymore? I mean, all this time they've been calling for a ceasefire. They finally got one that includes some pretty good terms for Hamas, it should be said, and they're still not happy. But you see, they were never just protesting about Israel or against war. They were protesting against the West. They were protesting against us and our values and our laws and our beliefs. It was never just about Israel versus Hamas. It was about the West versus the rest. That's why they're still protesting. And that's why they're protesting on our National Day. That's why you can't change the date of Australia Day. You give these people an inch, they will take a mile. They will not be happy until the whole concept of Australia has been destroyed. And they're getting more and more desperate because their efforts aren't working anymore. I mean, we might have been through a decade of self-loathing as a nation over Australia Day, but Australia Day is back. I mean, you saw the polling from the IPA recently. Support for Australia Day went from 63% last year to 69% this year, and even the majority of young people supported it being it on January 26. We stared down the voice. We stood against racial division. Sporting clubs are cutting back on divisive welcomes to country. And Australians once again feel confident to celebrate their National Day. We have rejected their division, and in response, they will try even harder to divide us. But we must not let them win. We can't let them win. We won't let them win. Australians of all colours and creeds and backgrounds are standing up for this wonderful country and this wonderful culture that we all share by doing the most Australian thing possible and telling these misfits to bugger off so we can enjoy a beer and a barbie in celebration of what unites us. We will not be divided, and it's time once and for all to get this rubbish off our streets.